Every funeral ends the same way. The casket is lowered. The dirt is placed. The people go home. But some of us buried more than a body that day. We buried words we never said. We buried apologies we never gave. We buried anger we never released. And we walked away from that grave thinking it was over, when in reality, something inside us never stopped bleeding. Because a body can rest in peace, but a grudge doesn't rest. It grows, it waits. It follows you home from the cemetery and moves into your heart like it belongs there. If you're watching this today, chances are you already know what I'm talking about. Maybe it was a sibling who said something cruel the day you buried your mother. Maybe it was a family member who acted like your grief didn't matter. Maybe it was the person in the casket, someone who hurt you deeply and died before they ever made it right. Before we go further, if this is speaking to you, hit subscribe right now. Because what I'm about to show you may be the difference between carrying that weight for the rest of your life, or finally putting it down for good. Let's be honest about something first. Forgiveness does not mean what happened was small. It does not mean the wound didn't matter. It does not mean you have to pretend the pain wasn't real. Forgiveness means you refuse to let that wound keep ruling your heart. Here is the truth many believers never hear preached clearly. Some Christians leave funerals with the body in the ground, but the resentment still alive and breathing inside their chest. They sang the hymns, they shook the hands. They said thank you for coming, but underneath all of it, there was a grudge they carried out of that building, one they never intended to put down. Today, I want to show you 7 of the most dangerous grudges Christians secretly bury at funerals. And more importantly, I'm going to show you 3 steps to finally forgive, before it becomes too late. Grudge number 1. They didn't honor my loved one the way they deserved. This one shows up quietly. The service feels wrong. The eulogy feels rushed. The stories miss the person you knew, and something inside you tightens, because it all feels incomplete. You smile through it, but bitterness starts to form. They didn't honor them right. Here's why this grudge is dangerous. It dresses itself up as loyalty to the dead, but it slowly turns into a wall against the living. Scripture reminds us that love does not keep a record of wrongs. Holding on to how a funeral should have gone does not protect your loved one's memory. It only poisons yours. Grudge number 2. My family judged the way I grieved. Maybe you cried too hard. Maybe you didn't cry enough. Maybe you needed space, and someone called you cold. Grief has no manual, yet somehow everyone around you had opinions about yours. This grudge is dangerous because it turns the very people meant to grieve beside you into people you now grieve apart from. You start avoiding relatives. You rehearse old conversations. You feel judged every time that memory comes back. The scripture is clear that we are called to weep with those who weep, not measure someone else's pain by our comfort. Grudge number 3. Someone hurt me at the funeral itself. This is the grudge nobody talks about, yet almost everyone carries. A careless comment. A cold shoulder. Someone gossiping nearby, while you were already in pain. You went to bury someone you loved, and left with a new wound from someone still breathing. This grudge is dangerous because it merges 2 griefs into one, the grief of losing them, and the grief of being hurt in the one place that was supposed to be sacred. Scripture teaches that we are not to let the sun go down on our anger, yet how many of us have let years go down on anger from one afternoon at a funeral home? Grudge number 4. They died and never made it right. This may be the heaviest grudge on this list. The person who hurt you the most is gone now, and they never apologized. They never explained themselves. They never said the words you waited your whole life to hear. Now you're left holding a wound with no one left to close it. This grudge is dangerous because it convinces you that forgiveness requires their permission. But that belief keeps you chained to a person who no longer lives on this earth. Scripture tells us that forgiveness was never meant to depend on the other person's confession. It was always meant to be a transaction between you and God, one that sets your soul free. Grudge number 5. My siblings turned the funeral into a battlefield. Somewhere between choosing the flowers and deciding who sits in the front row, grief turned into war. Old sibling rivalries came back to life. You weren't mourning together, you were competing for who loved them more. This grudge is dangerous because it fractures an entire family tree right when it needed to hold together the most. Scripture warns that a house divided cannot stand, And there is no house more fragile than a grieving family already cracked at the foundation. Grudge number 6. I was excluded, ignored, or humiliated during the burial. Maybe you weren't asked to speak. Maybe your name wasn't mentioned. Maybe your grief was treated as smaller, quieter, less important. This grudge is dangerous because it attacks something deeper than sadness. It attacks your sense of belonging. It tells you, even in death, you weren't important enough to be seen. Scripture reminds us that God sees what man overlooks, that no grief is invisible to him, even when it was invisible to everyone standing there. Grudge number 7. I said I forgave, but my heart is still locked. This is the most dangerous grudge of all because it hides behind the appearance of victory. You said the words, but somewhere deep inside, your heart never got the message. You still flinch when their name comes up. You still feel your chest tighten at the memory. This grudge is dangerous because it convinces you that the battle is over, when really, it never started. Speaking forgiveness and living forgiveness are two very different things, and only one of them actually sets you free. If any of these 7 grudges describe something you're still carrying, don't scroll past this moment. Take a second right now to like this video and comment the number of the grudge that hit you the hardest. Because naming it is the first step to releasing it. 3 steps to forgive before it's too late. Step 1. Stop waiting for justice before you release the weight. Many of us delay forgiveness because we're still waiting for something, an apology, an explanation, a moment where the other person finally understands what they did, but that moment may never come. Forgiveness does not require the other person's cooperation. It only requires your decision. Today, name the grudge out loud, even if no one else hears it, and say, I am not waiting for justice to let this go. I am choosing to release it because I refuse to let it own me any longer. Step 2. Take the grudge to God before you take it to anyone else. So many grudges grow in silence, replayed over and over in our own minds. But healing does not happen in isolation, it happens in honesty before God. Find a quiet moment today and speak it plainly. God, here is what happened. Here is how it hurt me. I am not pretending it didn't matter, but I am asking you to help me release what I cannot carry alone. This is not weakness. This is the beginning of real freedom. Step 3. Choose one person you will treat differently starting today. Forgiveness becomes real the moment it changes your actions, not just your feelings. Think of the specific person connected to your grudge, a sibling, a relative, even someone no longer living whose memory still stings. Choose one small act today, a text, a prayer, a softer response the next time their name comes up, a decision to stop repeating the story to others. This is how forgiveness stops being a feeling you wait for and becomes a choice you live. You cannot undo what happened at that funeral. You cannot rewrite the words that were said, or the moments that were missed, or the apology that never came. But you can decide, right now, that you will not carry that grudge into another year of your life. The casket is already closed. Don't let your heart stay closed with it. If this video spoke to something you've been carrying, make sure to like it and drop a comment below with the words, I choose to forgive and walk free. Someone in your family may need to hear that same freedom today. And if you're still asking how to walk with more biblical discernment and wisdom in moments like this, keep watching. The next video will help you grow in the way you think, grieve, and respond as a believer.